hey, we're a mile from Miami University. Miami University is a great school. They've got a great alumni program. So we began working with them and doing different sponsorships with them through athletics. We would sponsor art programs with them. And it kind of really kicked off too, because they've got a great gerontology program. So we began working with Scripps Gerontology to see how can we be a resource to you. They've done studies on our campus. They've had students come out and do rounds, but we've formulated into actually a formal partnership where now we take our residents and they have access to the rec center there. Students are on our campus, 5 to 7 days a week, volunteering, doing, administrator and training programs, doing internships. And it's so beneficial to the students and to our residents. It's really just become a way of life there.
Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full-service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. What happens when we stop seeing age as a divide and start using it to bring people together? Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to the Move In Senior Living Marketing powered by Unlock Health. That's exactly the conversation we're having today with Megan Ulrich, Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations at BHI Senior Living. In this episode, we dive into how intergenerational relationships are transforming senior living, not just in theory, but in real measurable ways. We're talking about resident engagement, we're talking about marketing strategy, and we're talking about talent pipeline and workforce development. Megan brings real-world examples of how students, residents, and teachers are forging meaningful connections that reshape what people think senior living is and what it can be. If you're looking for inspiration, innovations, or new ways to connect your community to the next generation, this episode's for you. Here are a few topics we cover. First, intergenerational relationship building as a strategic advantage, how BHI's partnerships with schools and universities are creating powerful, purpose-driven connections. Second, marketing that reflects real life and real residents. From collaborative publications to student-led campaigns, BHI is showing what authenticity and storytelling really looks like. And third, talent pipeline and workforce development. We explore how these programs do more than enrich lives. They attract the future of our workforce. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Megan Ulrich. All right, we're back on the Move In Senior Living Marketing, and we got my friend Megan Ulrich with us today. Megan, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did great, Larry.
Awesome. And like I told you earlier, I tend to mess up on the last name, and it has me terrified at this point. So thank you so much for joining us. Megan is the Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations at BHI. So is it BHI Senior Living?
Correct, BHI Senior Living.
Awesome. And you have, if I remember right, 10 communities, and you offer life plan services.
So we actually have 12 communities, 10 are life plan, and 2 are active adult communities. And then we also have a home health venture as well. So awesome. We're throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. We're a little bit everywhere throughout the Midwest.
I love it. And it sounds like you're doing some fun stuff. We met at Senior Living 100. And what was cool about that is that, Senior Living 100, you have like that speed networking in what I think it was 8 minutes. Each conversation.
You're in and out. You're talking to people the whole time.
That had to be like taxing for you to have to speak to that many vendors. Within like an hour and a half, just so many of us stopping by, having an 8-minute conversation, and then it's to the next one. Was that really challenging for you to like manage all of those quick conversations?
I can be a talker. So for me, the time seemed too short. Like you and I were talking and we're like, we need more time. We got to catch up. So then we, of course, got to have a drink later and discuss marketing efforts.
100%. And that's what I think the first 7 minutes were just catching, like, just, hi, how you doing? And then we had one more minute and they wrapped up the speed networking. And then at that point, we started chatting about the podcast, and you mentioned, some future endeavors that you're looking into. And we started to, have that conversation. So like you said, fortunately, later in the afternoon, we got to catch up and talk about other things, whether it's with, some of your, other plans with BHI and then the topic of intergenerational relationships comes up. And so at that point, we want to have this conversation on the podcast because, with this podcast, we speak a lot about typical marketing strategies, and it's a variety of activations, across senior living. Might be lead generation, social media, short form video. But I thought this was a really interesting topic. And that's why I asked you to join us, and just want to thank you in advance for just sharing this knowledge, and looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me. This is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So I've been in the industry almost 20 years, primarily marketing. I've also done a little bit of fundraising, communications, oversaw resident life. So obviously, the ultimate goal is how are we going to portray our campuses and how are we going to drive people to want to move into senior living. But there's so many things that intergenerational relationships can do, from life enrichment to driving people to our industry, because we need talented people to be working in our industry. And building all of those things up behind the scenes is going to help marketing. It's going to drive people to your campuses. It's what people want. They don't want the typical bingo and, come in and this is what's on the agenda today. And then you go back and to your home and then you come back and do it the next day. They want relationships. They want new things. People who want to live in your campus and work in your campus.
Yeah,
So,
and I appreciate you saying that. And it's sounds like there's always that different perspective once someone has the opportunity to interact with the community. It's always different than what people initially think of. And ironically, I had this conversation with one of my best friends yesterday, and you and I were kind of catching up on just recent trips, getting away from the office and work life. And you mentioned going on a trip with your husband, and I mentioned that just went to a cabin with some friends, and his grandmother, one of my best friends, his grandmother recently, moved into a senior living community, and he was just chatting about, it really blows his mind of it's so different than what he expected. And being there and seeing how she's interacting with others, and he said it really opened his mind, and really provided him a lot of encouragement of what that lifestyle is, and really advocating for others to look at those options. And it sounds like the same thing that what you're speaking of, which is once you're able to connect, it has a different perspective, and you really want to share that story with others. And am I taking us down the right path? As you mentioned that you're passionate for these types of strategies, and connecting the dots.
100%. So, and I'm a little biased too, because I actually started in the industry a little over 20 years ago as an intern in college. Had no interest in going into senior care, didn't really know a lot about it. And a marketing internship kind of came about, and I started interning at Maple Village, which is one of our Ohio campuses. And literally 2 weeks in, I said, I had no idea I would love it this much. And I've been in senior living ever since. So it opened my mind. And then speaking of that campus as well, in Ohio, two of our campuses, the Knolls of Oxford and Maple Knoll Village, we've got formal affiliations with Miami University and the University of Cincinnati. So the first year, I remember it was back in, I want to say 2012, that we had a group of about 100 nursing students from University of Cincinnati College of Nursing out on our campus, not all focused on gerontology, a lot in pediatrics, emergency medicine, different things. And they had to go through and all meet with our residents, a one-on-one, talk to them about their life, what was going on, what they currently are experiencing in the medical field. And I'll never forget when we kind of reconvened midway through the day and had a lunch, and I was walking around and hearing some of these students, and they said, we had no idea it was this much fun to be retired. And they're seeing people ride past on bicycles, and they're showing them the pub, and they're talking about the trips they're going on. And quite a few people actually from that first class went into geriatrics. And I would like to think it was because of our partnership. I'm just going to say it was,
I
because
think you
that's what
should.
my school was. Yeah. But so many of them had this, renewed or actually new interest in senior living. That's incredible. And, Larry, you and I have kind of talked about before, so much of the things we do from a marketing perspective is how are we going to portray our campus? How are we going to drive people to our campus? And building relationships with different generations is amazing, but I don't think people understand the impact and the trickle effect that can have. These students went home and they talked to their professors who are also in the healthcare field and interact with older adults every day. They talked to their parents, they talked to their grandparents, and shared with them that experience. So those people, when they think of senior living, they're going to remember Maple Knoll Village. They're going to remember that, this was a campus that prioritized continuing education and thinking outside the box and driving people to the campus. So that's something that it's never just one benefit. I think when you get different generations together, there's so many positive things that can come about of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think about the a common theme with anytime I speak or anytime I connect with others. It's we talk about really what are some of the best marketing strategies, and I feel like it always needs to have that foundation of what is that story you're telling, and I feel like this is part of BHI story and really pulling people together when it's all said and done, and I think it's really important to note that like we you mentioned about the residents and sharing their stories and that this group has great stories to share and such great advice. We need to highlight that, but I think people once they hear that they'll want to celebrate those stories. And speaking with you, I think about Jack York and some of the work he's doing at Tailgate, and we had him I think about 2 months ago on the podcast, and he was sharing some of his stories about interviewing those who are just turned 100 years old.
I
And
love it. Jack did an amazing job with that.
so great. And I think I've mentioned it before, which is I always record the podcast, but I listen back to it just to hear, okay, what sometimes you can hear it differently when you're actually listening to it instead of being in the conversation. But my wife was in the car with me and she loved it. She even mentioned like these are really great stories. But he even mentions that we need to do a better job of connecting the dots. In this community, we have someone who was, in World War II, or right down the street. Typically, you'll find a high school where they're studying World War II, and we need to really pull these connections together. And I think it's a win across the board.
I agree completely. So, we also talk about when people move to a community, they're not moving to bricks and mortar, they're moving to a lifestyle. And from a marketing perspective, you need to be able to actually be selling something that you're delivering on. So when we talk about mentoring and finding out also what these older adults are interested in, they're interested in continuing education. They're interested in sharing their story, helping to shape future generations. So with mentoring, we've got our Hoosier Village campus in Indianapolis actually has a group of high school students they've come out for the past couple of years on a regular basis, and the residents serve as mentors to them. And then vice versa, we've got Indiana University now coming out to some of our campuses and providing tech support, and they're doing surveys with them. Our Wesley Manor campus in Frankfort has a partnership with local Girl Scout troops where they're mentoring some of these Girl Scouts. So there's so much that our residents can give back to the greater good of the community, that then those other individuals can also benefit from that. So it's something that's really been incredible.
That's great. I love that. And how do you get a program how do you get these programs started? I'm curious about that. I'm sure others will listen to this and think it sounds like a great idea, but how do you really get that off the ground? Do you have any
So
advice for us?
there's a couple of different levels of that. For things like, reaching out to local schools, grade schools, Girl Scout groups, you can always see if there's any local connections. One of the really exciting things at Hoosier Village too is we've got a great connection with the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce. They recently are going to be doing an award for Teacher of the Year. And we reached out to them because we've got some amazing retired teachers on our campus, and they're now going to serve on the committee to help pick teachers for Teacher of the Year. So it's kind of what connections do you have in your own campus that are out there in the greater campus? But then I really want to highlight what we've been doing in Ohio over the past couple years. First of all, at Miami University, it's a smaller Oxford, Ohio town. We built the Knolls of Oxford back in 2000, and it was kind of one of those things that we thought, build it and they will come. They didn't come right away. So we had to think outside the box. Hey, we're a mile from Miami University. Miami University is a great school. They've got a great alumni program. So we began working with them and doing different sponsorships with them through athletics. We would sponsor art programs with them. And it kind of really kicked off too, because they've got a great gerontology program. So we began working with Scripps Gerontology to see how can we be a resource to you. They've done studies on our campus. They've had students come out and do rounds, but we've formulated into actually a formal partnership where now we take our residents and they have access to the rec center there. Students are on our campus, 5 to 7 days a week, volunteering, doing, administrator and training programs, doing internships. And it's so beneficial to the students and to our residents. It's really just become a way of life there. People
You know,
move to that campus because we're a part of a university. And that's
that's
something we also,
incredible.
yeah, it's something we also emulated then at our Maple Mill Village and University of Cincinnati campus. So that's the same thing. We saw, wow, how beneficial this is for our residents and for the students in Miami. Miami administration was thrilled with it because they're bringing alumni back to the town so they can be involved in different things at Miami. It really has just been a win-win for everybody. So when we started with University of Cincinnati, which is much bigger than Miami, great, great, amazing, campus. We had to start, pick where we're going to start. You can't just go straight to the top to the president and say, "Hey, we want a formal affiliation." How's this going to work? So, you're not going to get in doing that. We started with reaching out to College of Medicine and College of Nursing because we already had some partnerships with them where we'd let students come in and shadow some of our staff. So it really started from there. And it took a couple years, about 5 years of us working together, of letting, medicine and nursing come in. Then we expanded to engineering. So we actually had students then working collaboratively with engineering, medicine, and nursing to talk to our residents to find out what their needs or problems were, how they could come up with solutions together and proactively meet some of the needs of the future generations. So it's kind of, how could we get in once other colleges saw the benefit of working with, a retirement community. We started hearing from College of Business, other colleges, and they started wanting to work with us, which then gained the attention of administration at UC. And now we have a formal affiliation with them as well. So it's really putting the work in, finding out
Yeah.
how can you benefit them? How can they benefit your residents? Talking to your residents, finding out what their interests are. Because as we did these studies, we even did some surveys to find out, where did you go to school? What were some of your interests? And they got so excited. They shared,
Yeah.
here I was an engineer. I would love to provide, my experience, my stories to some of these first year students who are coming in. It was
Mhm.
really, really great.
I love that, and there's so many notes I just took because there's so much in my mind that I'm unpacking. First, I just feel like when you start this, there's that tip of the iceberg, which is this is working in this department with this group, but this opens up in here, and then what about this group? And I can just see all the advantages. And you mentioned it being a win.
It
It's a
is.
win for everybody. It's a win for the students. It's a win for the residents. And someone told me before that a lot of these residents, it's they have so much, they want to share. They have stories, they have advice, and they want to share this, and it gives them the chance to really provide that knowledge to others. And just the engaging of this, these communities coming together, I think it's incredible. And I love what you said about the medicine side, the engineering side, and then you have the tech support. It's just like great minds and just really incredible cultures coming together. Now on the marketing side, how do you tell the story about all of this? Because I'm sure you're leveraging it to tell a story about, for those who are looking to potentially become a resident, but at the same time, you're telling this story for other colleges, for high schools, and other groups within the community. I didn't know if that's done through social media or if you have any advice on that front.
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
So yes, we share it through social media. We share it through our newsletters. We do video stories. So one thing, for example, Miami University is part of our affiliation. We do a joint publication once a year that's we talk about the Knowles partnership. And we have students and residents contribute articles to that to talk about their experiences or projects they've worked on. And then we formulate that and get it out to our waitlist individuals, to our current residents. They share it with their alumni, with Emeriti, and it only strengthens the relationship, and it positively highlights all the good occurrences that are happening. It gives these students so much positive feedback because they're seeing, okay, what I put my time into and working with these older adults, look, it's really getting publicity. The residents love it. They love sharing those stories as well. And then another thing that you'll love as a marketing perspective, we started recently working, I guess about a year or so ago, with a local high school, Wyoming High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we actually have high school students who come out, meet with groups of our residents. They find out what they think is a selling point for our campus, and then they break off into teams. And at the end of the year, they have to come back and pitch to us and our residents about what they think good marketing campaigns would be.
I love that.
It's great. So it gives these kids real world experience. Honestly, it's given us a lot of ideas.
Sure. It's
One
a
of
whole
our
different perspective.
kids,
Sometimes we get into our own silo and we think that we know what's working, but when you get a different perspective, it does open your mind to what can be done.
it's great. Yeah, they'll be sitting there and they'll do the presentation, and we're like, well, this is really good. So it's really interesting. So it gives, again, them hands-on experience. The residents are completely invested because they follow these students on kind of their career path over the past few months. They've provided them feedback, given them suggestions. So to them, they've got a stake in this too. So
Mhm.
it all boils back to, we want to be able to sell what we're actually living and providing. And we're providing these opportunities for them to continue their education, for them to be involved in something that's worthwhile. We hear so much they want to give back. They want to still, make an impact in people's lives. This is one of the ways they're able to do so.
This is really incredible stuff. And it also shows the heart of senior living as a whole, which is, going back to the story element. I always say, like, senior living has the best stories. The residents have incredible stories that, need to be shared. The staff, they all have stories of how they got to, where they're serving senior living. And, everybody has that, how I got into it. And this is how it's really, warmed my heart and how I feel like I'm a better person and fulfilled through this work. And
Mhm.
then the something else that we always talk about is the geography or the community as a whole, not just the community, the senior living community, but the community as a whole. And I feel like this tells all of these stories. And I think about, like, this has to really help, like, just, so talent acquisition. I'm going to take a step back.
Mhm.
Talent acquisition continues to be a challenge for so many people. And I think about, this has to do wonders on the talent acquisition side, and telling all these stories and really sharing that. And it must supercharge those efforts.
Oh, 100%. These are great opportunities for press releases. We've gotten a ton of press out of it. We've actually gotten some national awards. We've spoken at conferences about it. Those are all things that you can share. But when we do resident satisfaction surveys or staff satisfaction surveys, the favorite thing about living in our campuses or working in our campuses is the people that live there and work there. So our residents love our staff. Our staff love working there because of our residents. And if we can help continue to highlight that, and then also bring people to our field and show them, okay, here's what we're doing to connect people to our industry. Here's how you can make a difference too, because we often have our staff participate in some of these studies and they get an opportunity to share their opinion. So these are things that I think is incredibly beneficial to talent acquisition, because turnover hurts everybody. It doesn't just hurt
Hmm.
human resources, it hurts satisfaction across the board and marketing. So by driving people who actually want to be in senior living and they want to build relationships with these residents, we're helping each other.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen, especially the younger group? I think just because right now I have middle schoolers, two middle schoolers, and one is looking at high school next year. Have you seen just firsthand how maybe, I'd say, their eyes were opened or their hearts were softened going through this process, and from the first time they walk through the door compared to once that, that phase wraps up, whether it's an internship or once they completed that phase? I didn't know if they seemed like two different people from when they walked in and when they left.
I think when people walk in the door, no matter what our campus looks like outside, any campus, it can be
Hmm.
beautiful. You walk in, you have that stereotypical opinion of people are going to be in walkers and wheelchairs, not communicating with you. And people find out that, okay, these are people who are just like me. And they are people who, maybe I want to be a teacher someday. This person was a teacher. They are active. They are going on trips. They're sharing their stories. We've heard them referred to as grandfriends so many times. By the end of their time there, like, this is my grandfriend, or this is my bonus grandma. It's
I love
amazing.
that.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got one of my favorite, all-time favorite residents in one of our Ohio campuses. He goes around playing the harmonica. He's in his late 90s. He's amazing. Wears sandals, and when it's 10 degrees out still, he's a character. But we had a group of students, and he connected with a couple of them, and he bought them harmonicas too to take
That's
back.
great.
And so, I mean, these are the amazing stories about these relationships, and those kids are going to remember that probably for the rest of their life. So
That's
that's the kind of
awesome.
amazing thing that I think we're really making a difference.
Yeah, and you and I might have spoken about this. We chatted a lot while at Senior Living 100, but that's the thing about what we do is that I can't imagine working for an organization that just supplies widgets. And I'm glad there are groups that provide tech products and everything, but I love the heart that we get with the work and bringing groups and communities together. You feel like you're making this world a better place, and that's one thing I appreciate really specifically about senior living marketing is you have the pieces, you just got to put them together. And I feel like this is one of the best ways I've ever seen that, which is we have all the information, we have the people. Let's get everybody together and just bring in a lot of good. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. What's your advice to others if they're exploring this? I know you gave us some great advice of really how to get that process started, but what's that overall, that overreaching, like, hey, this is what I would do. This is be cautious of this front. Think about this. Do you have anything that you could, share with the community?
So really talking to your residents and finding out what they're interested in. So we did a lot of that in the beginning stages of all of our intergenerational relationship building programs. Is finding out what are you really interested in? Is it telling your story? Is it being a mentor? Maybe it's all of the above. And then going out and just kind of doing some grassroots, talking to people, hitting the ground running and saying, not overcommitting because that can be a little bit exhausting, but saying, what can I do to make this make sense for you for us to have a relationship? Is it getting your students in here? Is it providing mentorship to them? Is it, we can even help, like it's in the past, we've helped grade projects before that they've done. So we're actually assisting that teacher doing so. So it's really finding out what are their needs and how can you help make their needs. And it doesn't have to be financial. We've done sponsorships before for art programs or different things. We already had that budgeted in, but not everything we do is from a financial standpoint. A lot of it is more of just time and effort. And it really is more of time and effort from our residents too.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have a resident buy-in and commitment, having one contact person for each campus that's willing to be that main person who a university can go to, a school can go to. So they're not reaching around trying to say, okay, I really want to talk to somebody about this, and they're getting directed to 20 different people. Make it
Yeah.
simple for anybody to come in and have a relationship with you and to build that partnership up. So identify
Yeah.
one person, find out what your residents are willing to do, find out what your staff are willing to do, because a lot of our staff have contributed opinions too, and they wanted to do that. And then don't overcommit. If you're going to
Yeah.
make a commitment, make sure it's something that's reasonable. You overcommit and don't deliver, you're not going to work with them anymore.
And I bet having that staff buy-in, I'm sure you get a lot more resources that way as well. Of,
Yep.
just the connections. And I know this group were connected with this organization. So I'm sure that really plays a big part too. I'm going to make an assumption. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you're getting into this, is it good to start small and build upon there to see what's working, what's not, and understand really that lay of the land before going too far, too fast?
Yes, 100%. Again, because you need to show that this is beneficial to both sides before you get buy-in from upper management. It may be your organization or at a educational institute. So
Yeah,
you're not going to go straight to the president and say, hey, we want a formal affiliation. Here's why. We're going to say, hey, this is what we've been doing over the past year and a half, and
sure.
this is how it's been beneficial. And then by building those relationships from the ground up with maybe some of the schools, it could be from university level, a particular department or college, or it could be a local high school, getting the teachers buy-in. They're going to back you up and they're going to help that partnership increase and expand too.
Yeah, I can see how it'd be tough to throttle back a little bit because just you speaking, I can see how, again, connecting with the Chamber of Commerce and local high schools and colleges and stuff, I can see how it can really pick up traction, and you almost have to slow it, really actively slow down a lot of these thoughts and ideas. So this has been great. Megan, thank you so much. Do you have any resources where people can learn more about these programs or where people can find you?
So we're BHI Senior Living. All of our campuses are listed on our website, and on all of our campuses, we have our formal affiliations, our relationships we have with the colleges. But I'm happy to provide my contact information. Larry, you can have it if you want me to put up on the screen here. If you want me to just say it, what would you like me to do? I
I
know
tell you
you're asking.
what, I always find it's best to, maybe are you on LinkedIn? I think
I am,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
let's start there. And if anybody has any questions, is it okay to say like, message you that way?
yeah, if anybody has any questions, message me via LinkedIn. I'd be happy to provide some feedback about the good, the bad, the ugly, mostly good, all good.
Mostly good.
But
There's
yeah,
always going to be a little challenge,
yeah,
through these things. So,
yeah.
no, this has been great. Megan, thank you again for taking the time to chat. I know you just got back from being away on vacation last night. So, for you to make time for us today is greatly appreciated. And hopefully, we'll see you at a future event.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Larry, for having me.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks.
This has been such a powerful conversation, not just about marketing, but about meaning, mission, and the kind of impact senior living can truly have. Here are a few notes I took during this conversation. First, start small with intergenerational programs. You don't need to launch a full university partnership tomorrow. Instead, reach out to local schools or even a single department like nursing, engineering, or business and pilot something small. Maybe it's a mentorship opportunity or guest visit. Those early wins help build trust and open doors for bigger collaborations down the road. Second, use resident stories to power your marketing. Skip the stock photos and staged activities. Instead, showcase the people who actually live and work in your community. Whether it's through student-led video projects, collaborative newsletters, or social media, authentic storytelling is what resonates and sets your community apart. And third, align your community engagement with your talent strategy. These school partnerships aren't just feel-good moments, they're a chance to build your future workforce. When students interact meaningfully with your residents and staff, it changes how they see aging, and in many cases, it plants the seed for a career in senior living. Thank you again for joining us today, Megan, and inspiring us. And until next time, let's go make some meaningful connections.